Welcome to Basketball on Figueroa, the only podcast breaking down everything happening with the Lakers, Clippers, and Sparks. I'm your host, Edwin Garcia. Joining me today, per usual, my co-host, Dari and Vaziri. We have midseason awards to give out, and we're finally going to take a look at the standings. It is about time. Dime. How you doing, man?
Excited for the episode, Edwin. Tired, but excited for the episode.
Yeah, I am also tired. It was one of those Mondays where I'm like, man, y'all really came with it, but we handled it well, I think, or as well as we could. Let's get into the games here. We almost had a sweep. We almost had an all-W sweep. Obviously, we'll talk about that Lakers embarrassing loss there. But if they won that, LA would have ran the table, which is what we were hoping for. But we didn't get that. Clippers took care of business, so they did handle their end on Tuesday. They played OKC, and they won 128 to 117. Dime, can you tell me a little bit about this game? I believe you were in attendance for this one, correct?
Nope. This was my 5th missed game of the season. But I'll tell you, the Paul George show. That's what I have to say about that. He went off against his former team, closed out the game. He had 38 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. And it was interesting, Kawhi wasn't really that involved. Like, he only shot 10 times. And the Clippers still got the job done. And it was just really the Paul George show. But Mason Plumlee and Daniel Tice giving some really good minutes at center without Zubac, because Zubac is going to be out for 4 weeks before he gets reevaluated with the calf injury. So, yeah, solid win and a good win against a good team in OKC who's just above us in the standings. And we lost to them without Kawhi earlier in the season in Oklahoma. So, nice to get a win there.
Yeah, double L for OKC, right? They took the Lakers L, and then, the Clippers are obviously a quality team at this point of the season. So it's, again, we don't want to, we'll get more into the standings and all that stuff, but these are the kind of things I talk about with those young teams. They just make me a little nervous because they're not ready and they haven't faced that intensity. And this game, from when I remember from it, since it was early this week, there was a little bit of that edge to it as well. You could tell that the teams were kind of, bringing it. You're starting to see that this late in the season now as well. Like the Bucks had that game as well, where you felt like, oh, the energy's kind of up here. I think when teams are kind of mentally marking those games against certain top opponents, where they're really bringing it and kind of treating it like, okay, it's not the playoffs, but like we also want to make sure we're where we want to be, and this is a team that we want to compete against, and that's definitely OKC. And the Clippers, they might be in that 2-3, 3-4, depending how things kind of go. And Clippers balled out, and I'm not surprised at all. Obviously, I'm a little wary of OKC being so young, and obviously even without Zoo, they were able to take care of business. The Zoo thing, we've talked about calves, quads; those are always the annoying ones, and the ones that you get nervous whenever you hear a player has that, versus like maybe a sprained wrist or a sprained ankle, because you kind of understand the timeline. For those calves and quads, hamstrings, it can be very delicate. You can feel good, and then you run for 20 minutes, and you're like, oh, it's not good, actually. And it's very tricky. So hopefully, obviously I'm still a big fan of Zoo, and I've never want to see anyone hurt. So hopefully he has a not speedy recovery, because 4 weeks is 4 weeks, but hopefully it's as close to 4 weeks as possible, I'll say. And I don't think, Clipper fans need to worry about him long-term. It's just a nagging injury. And even the 4 weeks, that might just be just to kind of say, hey, don't ask about it. Let him get his rest. And maybe he even comes in at right that 4 week mark or shortly after. So obviously we're hoping for Zoo to have a speedy recovery there with that, but it doesn't seem like it was super, super serious. But yeah, I mean, PG's he's been on a heater lately. We've been talking about it for a while, that his form went from like pretty good to just, we'll see if we name him MVP. I won't spoil all that, but he's definitely putting up numbers that it's hard to argue he's not the best player on the team. And this was another example of that. They've just been rolling. All right, so moving on. Next game we have Lakers and Mavs. This one surprised me. It was a good Lakers win. I feel like Laker fans, they're definitely on this one was like riding high, right? Got back to 500, beat a quality team in the Mavericks. Luka still went off, I believe. Let me see his numbers. Yeah, at 33 points, 12 for 24. And the Lakers they brought almost the best version of themselves here. You had everyone in double digits starting except for Taurean Prince. You had AD had a monster game, another double-double, 28 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists. He almost got the triple-double that everyone coveted so much. He was right there. He missed it, obviously, by one dime. And you just got pretty much a very balanced game. Not much from your bench. 6 points from Rui, 7 from Vando, but Vando was fantastic. He was everywhere defensively. Just an absolute masterclass. I've been wanting to write a feature on Vando because when you look at his stats, right, they don't tell you anything. You're like 7 points, 9 rebounds kind of stands out, but after that, there's nothing. But it's the little things, Dime. It's the little things Vando does. How he's able to defend on ball, off ball, deny screens, accept it. Like, he's just so good at all those intangibles that really impact winning. He even forces a few turnovers. You saw he had one backcourt violation. He was on off ball. He anticipated it. He didn't get the steal, but he tipped the ball. But then I forgot who his opponent was, but they touched the ball before it went backcourt, and they touched it again to regain it, and then they got called for backcourt violation. It's like those little plays Vando does. Again, I don't want to justify all the losses and say it was because a couple role players were missing, but those role players, they're slotted to unlock this team's potential. That's why they traded for Rui. That's why they traded for Vando last season, and you saw the change they did. So when you take them out for extended periods of time, it just hurts because they were part of that secret sauce, even though, your Ferrari is obviously, AD and LeBron, but you need those sidecars have to be there. And when they're not there, those ones, especially on the wings, it really affects it. And this was a good example of what this team could be, when everything's clicking, and we'll get into the bad example later. But what was your, thoughts on Mavericks Lakers here?
I thought this was one of the better wins for the Lakers. They turned up in the third quarter, though. Like, this game was all about the third quarter for the Lakers. 42-27, they outscored Dallas in that one. And I thought they did a good job of pushing off of misses. And yeah, I agree with everything you said about Vando, but it's what we've been talking about, Edwin. The best version of this team is when you get the most out of D'Lo. His pull-up transition threes, his passing, he had his fingerprints all over this game. And, the thing about D'Lo is, yeah, he might not play well in certain big games, but let me tell you something. In the games that he plays well, and Dallas is a playoff team with a better record than the Lakers right now. When he plays well, it rains. Like, it starts raining, and he starts feeling himself. He starts hitting all types of shots. He plays like a star. So he still has that characteristic in him, enough for me to say that I think he's still the third best player on this team. Overrated.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think he's the third best player on this team. I think one time I posed a question in an article, like rhetorical, obviously, because besides going in the comments, you're not going to actually answer. But I'm like, who do you think? I think it said something like, the next Lakers to score 30, not named LeBron AD. Who is that? And the answer to that question, in my opinion, is like, it's D'Lo. Like, that's the only guy who can really give you that, where you feel like, yeah, he could probably do it tonight. And he's done it a couple times here in January. He's been on an absolute heater, like you just mentioned. He's just been, producing at such a high level. And yeah, will he always get there? No. Does he have flaws? Of course. But, every player has flaws for the most part. Very few where you can say they don't have anything, that's wrong with them. But he usually makes the right decision. He's usually going to do what's best for the offense. Again, we talked about that pick and roll with him and AD, how good it is. We're going to see some other highlights later of some spectacular plays from D'Lo. And in this game, he had 29, so he was right there. He has a couple 30-point games this month, and he's got another one we're going to talk about soon. So yeah, D'Lo's been great. I think so many times people point out the flaws, but not the good. And you got to add it all up for the context of the whole thing. And yeah, when he's icy, it's just so much fun seeing him hit threes, coming off the pick and roll, hitting his little floaters, hitting his jumper. He's so good at the mid-range jumper. I know you love the mid-range jumper. It's a lost art, and him and Rui are so good at it. And Rui, not so much this year, but D'Lo, for sure. That's what makes him so deadly on the pick and roll, because you can't get off of him even after when he holds the ball and he's driving to the basket, because he may not lob it. He may not go all the way. He might pull up and hit it, and he's really good at that shot, so you have to respect it, and that makes it tougher to defend.
Yeah, let me give you this, Edwin. Last 8 games, D'Angelo Russell is averaging 22 points and 6 assists on 53, 48, 81 splits. I mean, come on. That kind of efficiency, especially from 3. And he's shooting 41% from 3 this season. Like, for a team that struggles to hit threes, the answer is there. Now, there's the noise. Should we wait till towards the end of the episode to address the elephant in the room here?
Let's do it now.
Okay, I mean, this stuff about his reactions after the game against Portland, which happened on Sunday, and he played amazing in, and people are saying him and Rui, they know they're about to be traded. Well, a day later, there's still no trade. Why didn't they look as ecstatic? You think there's anything to that? Like, and also, Do we think the Lakers are smart to trade a D'Lo for a DeJounte or a Zach LaVine? Is that the move? Like, what else are you giving up? A first rounder and Jalen Hood-Schifino? Are they that much better than D'Lo to give up another first rounder? I mean, yeah, I get it. Forget the picks because LeBron's on your team with AD, but DeJounte Murray, I mean, is he that much better for this team than D'Lo? I don't know. LaVine, maybe, but it depends. D'Lo has a plus in both sides and a negative in both sides of the DeJounte and Zach thing, but I'll let you go.
We're having a mid-off. That's what we're having. Two guys that are pretty good, but not all-stars, automatic kind of players. They're in the hall of pretty good. That's what D'Lo and DeJounte are. Obviously, DeJounte, he's got a lot more of a higher ceiling because we haven't seen as many years. D'Lo's already kind of a known quantity. He's not going to get too much better. He's also not going to get too much worse. So he's where he is. DeJounte, you still have the hope that maybe he can take a step that he hasn't reached yet. But I'll tell you most of the intel that I do know about the current situation. Like you said, it's always ongoing. It's always changing. I don't read into the whole he looked like he was crying, and the Rui thing I'll give you, he looked really exhausted there. I'm guessing he was just tired. No, the Lakers are not known for doing that kind of thing. I know the Lakers organization pretty well. It's my job to be in tune. They're not the kind of shady organization that would trade a guy, have it kind of known, and still force him out there. They wouldn't do that. They would either sit him, they would figure something out. They'd find a way to not get that information out. They've never had an awkward situation like that. They just don't operate that way. They would have rested and sat him if it was so close that they didn't want to put them in that situation. They would never purposely do that. And like you said, nothing was released. And, I try to find the line between I know some stuff and sometimes I can't say it. And sometimes I see stuff on social. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And that was one of those ones. I'm like, he did. What do you think? He heard that he got traded. He was crying. And then the next morning, they're like, actually, we're still a little bit away from the negotiation. So we don't actually have a trade. No. And he knows better. He knows more than I do, I'm sure, about the situation. And the truth of the matter is he signed a 2-year contract. He purposely waived his no trade clause because he knew that would give him the more money. And that also gives him the option to trade him without him having to say. He understood this. He knew going in, this was like a 50-50. I last the whole year. But guess what? I get my money. I'm also still on the team. And let's just see what happens. And yes, I waived my no trade so you can do what you need to do for your organization, but also give me that money. That's what they did. So there's no this idea that he's being wronged and hoopla about it. It's really not there. Now, is it the right decision to trade for him away for Murray or LaVine? That's a different scenario. From LaVine, everything I've heard recently, and on Silver Screen and Roll, we've written about this, and other reporters like Brian Windhorst and Jovan Buha of The Athletic have mentioned it. At this point, the Zach LaVine stuff is dead. It's dead. The Lakers don't want him. It's too much money, too many assets. The Bulls are just way off on what they want. The Lakers look at it more like they're doing them a favor by helping them get off that contract than it would be. And they want Rui and Reeves and a first and more. And they're like, no, we don't even really like this deal. Not because of LaVine and who he is. It's just that he's bad on defense. And it's how many more years? 4 years on the 100-something million. They're going to be on the hook for that just to give the Lakers maybe a better chance, maybe for the second half of a 500 season. It just doesn't make any sense. Compared to Murray, is he a better offensive player than LaVine? No. But you know what else he is? A player on a way better contract for less years, way younger, without that injury history that LaVine has. So that's the reason why they're a little more welcoming of the Murray trade. Giving up a first for that's a little bit rough. And they are still a little bit of ways from that in terms of they're kind of arguing that. The Hawks want a little bit more. The Lakers don't want to give too much. And that's why there hasn't been a trade made. Will there be a trade made? Honestly, I think probably, yeah. But until there is one, there's still a little bit of ways. And you never know when another team's going to come in or the Lakers see another scenario that's cheaper, that makes more sense. It's an ongoing situation. So it's going to be ongoing. And I wrote an article today on Silver Screen and Roll about these trades. And as usual, nothing inspires activity more than a deadline. And every team's looking at it and saying, hey, I still got a couple weeks and I'm still not happy with my deal. So I don't know. I'm going to wait and see. I think we won't. I don't think we'll get to the deadline without this being resolved. But it probably is going to go until February 3rd, February 5th, something kind of close where teams okay, are we going to do this or not? You know what? Fine. I'll agree to this. I wanted an extra pick. I didn't get it. You wanted this player, whatever. I think that's probably what we're looking at. And if I'm right, you probably shouldn't be reading into every smile and every frown of every player during a 2.5 hour game. You know, I see that stuff all the time, right? They were talking about LeBron subbed himself out and he was mad, and he went on IG and talked about how he didn't do that, and etc. It's just this time of season, this time of the year, fans get a little silly with everything. You know, who's following who on IG and all this stuff. It's like, look, when there's news, there's news. Unfortunately, we're just gonna have to wait a little bit. So that means 2 more weeks of overanalyzing every frown and smile that happens in the Lakers bench. But there's nothing to do, because until a deal is made, and who knows, maybe there even isn't a deal. We're just not sure yet. I do think one's coming, but we're still a little bit of ways away. But that's where things are right now, and we'll see. Like, I know both of us are big D'Lo fans. We like his game, but I do understand they're trying to go for a title. They might have to switch some stuff up to try to at least give themselves a different shot. And, you know, DeJounte's never had that kind of pressure. It's going to be different if he does arrive here. Hopefully he can adjust quickly, because it's going to be a different thing than Atlanta for sure. But right now, D'Lo's playing great. He's doing his job. He's being a professional. He's playing well. And the Lakers definitely needed it against Dallas, because without him playing that good and kind of helping turn things around in the third, it was a 50-50 game before that. They were up by a few points, but, you know, it could have gone either way. And with his performance, they had a comfortable win against a playoff team. All right.
Wait, let me tell you one thing, though. DeJounte Murray, Edwin, you said he was a lot younger than those guys. Those guys were drafted in 2015, but he actually was drafted in 2016, DeJounte Murray. He's in his 8th season. He's 27 years old, and I remember it's because he tore his ACL. Remember that? It was 2018-19. He tore his ACL, so he missed that whole season.
How old is Levine, though? He's a lot older, ain't he?
He was a one and done at UCLA, and he got drafted in 2015. So I doubt he's that much older. Let's see. Zach is 28. There's only 1 year difference. And D'Lo is how old?
That's ridiculous.
D'Lo was 2 years at Ohio State or 1 year?
I want to say 2. Let's look at that.
Right, I got it. He's 27. What the heck? They're the same age. D'Angelo Russell was born in 96. That's wild.
That's wild.
Yeah, 2 years older than me. Wow. Yeah, he spent 1 year at Ohio State. So there's not that much of an age difference, Edwin.
There isn't that much of an age difference. But again, Zach's got those injuries, and he's not on a rookie scale contract, and, you know, it's a little different. And D'Lo, same thing. He's on a couple different contracts. Not the injury part, but a couple different contracts. And I feel like, do you at least agree that Murray has a higher unknown ceiling versus the other two?
I think Murray might get a little better, but I don't think he's going to get that much better. If they're already talking about that he's fallen up a cliff defensively and he's just decent now, like that, yeah, he'll probably be better than D'Lo, but D'Lo's a much better – well, I will say, though, DeJounte is shooting well from 3 this year, but D'Lo is just, I think, a better offensive player, but he's hitting – I think DeJounte's probably more consistent. I think DeJounte's a little better, but if you get the best version of D'Lo like we saw second half of last season, playoffs, this last couple of games, I think it's like – take your pick. If DeJounte is not playing elite defense, then it's really even to me.
You are correct, but I think he'll play good enough defense, and that was the issue with D'Lo. It wasn't he. The reason he got benched the final game against the Nuggets is just, as you know, especially when you're switching, you're only as good as your worst defender, and they were just targeting him, and he was getting cooked, and it was just like, and then his shot was not there, but that was more of a, you know, that ebbs and flows. But it's like, okay, the shots you're struggling on shooting, and you're getting cooked defensively, like. I mean, we got to sit you down. And I think what they are looking for, besides someone who can maybe match his offense, is can we not have that issue on the defensive side, especially with again, thinking of the main goal, title, Western Conference. You're going to have to play SGA consistently. You're going to have to play, you know, Murray consistently. You might have to play, you know, even a dynamic team like, you know, like the Clippers. I mean, you don't think PG and Kawhi are going to be like, where's D'Lo? And bring me D'Lo, you know, like that's going to happen. And if that starts happening and you're like, oh my goodness, we got to play you off. And now we can't play our starting point guard because, you know, Paul George is like, I'm going 8 for 12 on him. It's a problem. So there's not going to be I think what's interesting about this is there won't be a 100% right solution unless, you know, the trade hits, because there isn't a superstar disgruntled player that, oh, this clearly makes them better. It's going to be improvement in the margins. And maybe not even that. It might just be a wash or a slight, you know, downgrade. So it isn't like last year where clearly Russell Westbrook wasn't working for the Lakers. So you got to move him. It's not working. You see the good in D'Lo. you see the good in this team, but you also see the bad. So, and
here's what I have to say about that. I actually am very convinced now with what we're saying that the Lakers might as well go after DeJounte Murray. But here's the thing. Why in the world would the Hawks want D'Angelo Russell over DeJounte Murray at this point? Like, why is that a good move for them? Like, I just don't think that helps them at all. They can't guard anybody. Like, I think that,
well,
yeah.
Now I'm feeling like it is an ad for my job. But on Silver Screen in a Row, we reported one of the reasons the trade hasn't gone through, at least reported from Woj and Shams talked about this as well. So they were like the primary source on this. But the Hawks were looking for a third team to take on that D'Lo contract, and they want some draft capital. And of course, now you're adding another team. They want, again, another team that makes it more confusing. That's why I always like when people say, oh, what about 3-team trade? I'm like, that's another thing that makes it hard. So yes, the Hawks are not really looking at D'Lo as their future. They're looking at, okay, Murray and Trey don't work. We agree. We paid a lot for Murray, so we can't just drop him. We need to get something back. And then they're looking at what they're getting back, and they're saying, okay, if it's not going to be a player, like you said, D'Lo's also not going to be our future, and we will be on the hook for that player option if he opts in. So maybe we need to move him, and can we get draft capital for another team that doesn't mind taking his contract, or maybe even wants it because he's still a starting quality PG for like a team that's kind of developing and doesn't care, and hey, it's fine. We also need to fill in our roster, salary cap space, things of that nature. So finding that team is the tricky part, unless they finally decide, hey, you know what? I don't know, I'm making it up, but if the Lakers throw in a couple second-round draft picks from 2025, would that be like, okay, cool, that's that plus a first, plus Reeves, and maybe someone like Jalen Hood-Schifino, a good young prospect. Okay, now we feel like we're getting enough, and we got a couple extra draft picks. D'Lo's still a good player. Let's just see if he can play next with Trey this year, and then maybe we can offload him in the offseason if he does opt for his player option. Maybe he doesn't and wants the freedom to do whatever he wants to do, right? So that is another reason why it's an issue for Atlanta, because they are looking at the same thing and saying, hey, I don't think we want this D'Lo guy. Can we get another team involved? And right now the answer to that question is no. So wheeling and dealing behind the scenes, we'll see what happens.
Makes sense.
Yeah. All right. You know what didn't make sense? The Lakers losing to the Nets. They lost 130-112 in a game that was just really disappointing and kind of put a stench on everything we just talked about. They were rolling. It looked like a great win, another easy win. Here come the Lakers. And then that second half, I mean, what happened, Dime? I mean, it was just a disaster class of zone defense. I mean, I haven't seen zone defense that bad since, I was playing, and I'm like, man, like we're getting cooked that people are in the wrong spot. And, I'm arguing with my teammate, like, hey, why'd you move? That's your zone. And he's like, no, that was you. And then, we're just getting, destroyed. That's what I saw with the Lakers. So many errors. Everyone was to blame. Role players, star players, pointing fingers when they were the ones blowing the coverages. They're not hustling back on defense. They're getting killed in the glass. I mean, Austin Reeves, Cam Thomas was like food, and he just went after him. And Reeves had a rough game. He's another one who kind of can struggle defensively, especially against some physical wings and guards. Just an ugly loss. Really, really bad. What did you, besides a smile on your face, which I can tell you're hiding here, what did you think about this Nets-Lakers game here?
It's actually the only one in the rotation of Laker games that we're talking about this week that I missed. So this one's all you, bro. I'm just looking forward to hearing what you're saying about it.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this game twice because I also wanted kind of more context. Yeah, exactly. Watching it twice is rough, but I wanted more information.
I was reading Cam Thomas's line in this game. I mean, dude, that guy is electric. He's such a Kobe worshiper, and it's so obvious. He always wears Kobe's. He wears number 24, and he just like is a bucket getter from everywhere on the floor. I actually love it. He's a guy that you would talk about. D'Lo is a fun like flamethrower. He's even more fun to watch. He's like ridiculous. He was cooking the Clippers for a bit. I know we'll get into that a little later, but man, LeBron rough. For him, a rough shooting night in this one from the looks of the box score.
Yeah, and this is the worst version of this team. James Worthy said afterwards that this erased all the good of the last couple games, which we just talked about. And he was right, because it was just deflated, and you just were like, I'm sick of this. And in that second half, the Lakers were in control most of the first half. And even though the Nets kind of got it close, you still felt like, okay, I think they were up by like 6. You're like, okay, we're up by 6 going into the third. And the Nets were kind of getting lucky with these threes. Like they'll come down to earth. Also, we're still winning. So like let's just come out, correct in the third quarter and let's put it to sleep. And they were the ones who got put to sleep. It was terrible. And yeah, it was just miscommunication on 3. Defense, defending the perimeter was just awful. And Cam Thomas, like you said, he was feeling himself. He just got real physical and he was just driving it to Reeves. And Reeves couldn't do anything. There was a couple of plays he got cross nasty. There's one he like fell on the floor and then Cam hit the fadeaway. And I was like, oh my God, this is awful. We're lucky we were in Los Angeles, because if that would happen in Brooklyn, they would have had to call timeout, because it was just going to be like pandemonium. And the bench obviously was doing what they could to get it riled up. But yeah, it was just a terrible, terrible game. And no one had a good second half. That was the key. Even D'Lo, his numbers looked pretty good. He had like 20 points, but 16 came in the first half. So he only had 4 in the second. The offense started sputtering. Ham talked about it. Obviously he takes a lot of the blame as well. I mean, he didn't do a good job stopping these runs and adjusting to it. And when they switched to a zone, and it got worse. And they just never fixed anything. And again, with the zone, there were just so many mistakes. Doubling when they weren't supposed to be doubling, overhelping, leaving your man, then having to rush to close out because you left the man to begin with for a rotation that never happened. Stuff like that. Just stuff where you're like, come on, guys. Like, this is obviously, I'm not at the level of doing this, but it's like I can see this happening in real time. Like, you got to get it together. And they all talked about it. Ham, AD, Bron. The word all 3 used in their post-game, miscommunication. All of them said it differently. Miscommunication. There was miscommunication. There was miscues. And you just can't have that at this level. And I think they do also need to practice more. They haven't practiced a lot this season because they said they've been unhealthy, yada, yada. But I think that's where you can work on these reps and kind of, as that's what makes practice important for schemes, for systems like that, and for switching things up. That's what helps get that camaraderie together. You can stop practice and point out, hey, why did you do this? You're supposed to be at the nail. You're supposed to rotate. Don't do that unless the ball goes here. Things like that. And I think even though they're professionals, the chemistry might not be there with everybody. And they do have some weak defenders on the team. And especially when a game's going wrong, what happens? You get a little anxious. You start to overdo things. You start to, and both sides, offense and defense. You might take the ball, try to be a hero. You might overhelp on a 3-point shot, and now the drive's open because you're just doing too much. And that's kind of what happened. It's just snowballed, and that momentum was lost. And shout out to Brooklyn, because they were dead in the water, and they just came out with some pride, and they rallied back. And shout out to Lonnie Walker, 6 for 7 from the field in 13 minutes. So another Lonnie Walker game. This time we were on the other end. Lakers benefited from a few of those last year, and this year it was the opposite. So just an embarrassing loss, a pretty rough loss. And yeah, it felt like one of those the sky's falling games. And one thing I think I've learned so far about this team is they do have great potential. We've seen it, Western Conference Finals, in-season tournament champions, beating top teams like the Clippers, like the Mavericks. But for every great game they have awful games like this where you're like, see, this team isn't ready. And the way I describe it is that people, they're a student that can get an A, and they're also a student that can get an F. And what does that make you? A C student. And that's why they're at a 500 team right now, because they're not consistent. They can't string together the wins, and they also won't lose that many. So that's why I think they also have to make some of these trades and go somewhere. If they want to go up or down, they have to do something. And I think they're going to take the risk, try to make some trades to try to jump up, instead of saying, hey, we can keep on doing this where we beat a couple good teams, lose to a couple bad teams for another 40 games. Or can we find a recipe that gets us more on the right side of that? If not, hey, they'll meander around 500 for another 3 months, and they'll also get some good wins and some good losses. So I think they're kind of sick of that. So we'll see what they do. But this was definitely an ugly loss. All right, let's move on to the Sunday matinee. We had Clippers Nets. The other LA team actually took care of business. They won 125-114 on their home court. As you mentioned, Cam had a couple moments there as well. So he really liked his time in LA. He had 20 points, not as monstrous as the Lakers, where he had I think 33. But he did take care of business there. Again, no Zoo now. I think at this point is when they made it official, if I remember. It was in between these games. But you had Kawhi with 21. You had Harden with 24. We haven't talked enough about Harden here. Can you tell me a little bit about Harden's game and how he's been playing this past week?
Oh, Yeah, I mean, he was okay in the OKC game. I thought he still made some good passes though and stuff. But this game, terrible stuff. We were down 16-0 to start the game. And it just looked like one of those early games. We've had like 4 days off, the longest rest we've had like between any game this season. It felt like it had to have been.
Yeah.
And they just came out really slow, getting back in transition and kind of playing with their food. But they started making a run on the earlier side of the fourth quarter. And Russ was amazing the whole game. Like he was getting to the basket so much. And Harden had a poor first half, but second half he was really good, making threes, obviously making some nice passes. And he still looks pretty formidable one-on-one as of now. I would keep an eye out on as the season progresses how often he can get by good defenders because he seems like he's getting by good defenders better than last year in the playoffs, but we also aren't at the playoffs. A whole season, that has a different toll on the body. But Russ was amazing. And then we had the big four actually have some successful minutes finally with them and Norm. So maybe next to a shooter, it can work to close out the game. 22-0 run. Best game I went to this season, Edwin. Best. It was so much fun. And it was electric. 10 straight sellouts for the Clippers, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, what was talking about? Winning solves everything. Next thing you know, you got a winning team. People are more excited to go. Even in a matinee, that's also tough because, as you know,
yeah, man, and again,
you got to leave your house at like 11 a.m. on a Sunday. I mean, I won't speak too much about me, but based on my Saturday, 11 a.m. on a Sunday, I wasn't feeling too hot. So shout out to Clippers Nation for showing up. That's tough to do on a Sunday night in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and it's funny. It was against the Nets who have no stars like that. Like their best player is Mikal Bridges. Like it's just shows that the people are showing up for the Clippers because we have a super team. We have attractions, 4 of them. And Kawhi Leonard, I will say, didn't have a very good game, but in the fourth quarter, he turned it up. He turned up. And how many times do we see Kobe have games where he was bricking the whole game, and then in the fourth quarter, he would just turn up? And that's a great sign of a great player. And you got to give Westbrook and Harden credit because they just, made him not have to do everything offensively or not have to do as much offensively. So that's where the Harden effect is definitely tangible and felt. But yeah, solid win, very fun atmosphere, and we'll take it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's definitely a good win. I know Lakers fans wish they had that because it was a rough game with the Nets for the Lakers. All right, final game we're going to talk about here is Lakers Portland. This one just finished yesterday. Well, let's actually go with the actual date, which is Sunday, because people might listen different times. 134-110. This was right after the Clippers game. They just, they do the whole swap of the stadium, change it all up, and Lakers took care of business. 134-110. Again, this is the Jekyll Hyde is what this team is. This one, you got everyone was just on their A game, which you can expect. They were embarrassed. They had a rough game. They're at home. Portland's not a good team either. So, and they're even worse than I think Brooklyn based on just like the overall talent level and where they're at. And the Lakers just brought it. They were pretty much controlled the whole game. They came out to an early lead. Portland kind of made a little bit of a run, but by the end of the first quarter, they were in control, and they stayed in control, and it kept going. And again, more D'Lo Flowers. He had that behind the back layup. He bounced the ball off the court, and LeBron caught the lob in the air. It was just beautiful stuff. It was like Showtime Lakers once again. D'Lo with 34 points, 14-21, 6 for 11 from 3, 8 dimes. It was just fantastic. LeBron still did LeBron things, give you 28, 5 and 5. Quiet AD game, but it really was quiet because they were just rolling so much. They didn't really have to go to his number much, and they were in total control. So I think AD did have a quiet week, but it was more so that they didn't really need him like that, and they were rolling. So, play with the hot hands, and the hot hand was definitely D'Lo and every decision he was making. I liked Rui being in the starting lineup. He was in because Taurean Prince had an injury, and he was a late scratch. He ended up out for the night. But I did like him in the lineup, even though he wasn't the greatest. He only had, I think, like 9 points and 2 for 7, so he didn't shoot that well. But he still gives you that size and that scoring ability, and I think him slotted with this unit, it worked rather well. It's one of the starting fives I kind of like, and one of the 5-man units I want to see more of, regardless of whether they start or not, moving forward. So, Yeah, this was a really good win. This was much, much better. Dime, were you able to watch this one? I know since you had that Clippers game, maybe you had to rush home or you caught the replay. What were your thoughts here on Lakers Blazers?
No, I watched the game. I thought it just felt like the Lakers were on cruise control. And what I like though, as if you're watching from a Laker fan perspective, is they didn't play with their food. They took care of business, and I think the Lakers have actually been pretty decent this season about beating the weaker teams, which is good. But the teams around their level, outside of the 2 wins against us, of course. Well, actually, we're not on your level right now. We're at a higher level. That's a fact. Regardless of the season series, it's a fact. And besides that, though, I think they've struggled against good teams and teams around their level. But they've taken care of business for the most part against these weaker teams. And I thought this game was no different. LeBron was excellent. D'Lo was amazing. I mean, he just couldn't miss. And then you mentioned the little Baron Davis behind the back fake pass to yourself kind of deal. It was the first time I'd ever seen a lefty do that, which I thought was cool. Yeah. And I thought Austin Reeves had a very solid game. Efficient, didn't do too much. So solid performance. Portland, obviously the whipping boys of this Western Conference this season, but very solid win for the Lakers. It just feels like you squandered an opportunity to have a 4-game winning streak with that Nets loss, but 3 out of the last 4, not the worst in the world. Unfortunately, it's going to lead to another L on Tuesday.
Is it though?
Without LeBron, you would need 40 from D'Lo, I feel like, to even.
We got this guy named Anthony Davis. I think he can probably just. I mean, with Zoo not being there, I mean, Zoo was defending him, not great, but like doing his best. It's going to be a little rough. I mean, who are you going to put on AD tomorrow?
I think you'll see a lot of looks like Kawhi, Tice, Plumlee.
Even Russ might be on him for a few minutes, I think.
Oh, that'd be optimistic. I think we're just going to double him.
And you don't think we're going to see Russ? I think Russ is going to do that. He's going to definitely, when he's at the top of the key, he'll have a switch and Russ will.
Oh, switch definitely. But I meant like starting possession with Russ.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Yeah, I doubt it. But I will say,
I won't draw that up.
Given no LeBron and your lack of 3-point shooting, I think Ty Lue's going to try to double AD and make someone besides D'Lo beat us. So, like, when the ball gets swung to D'Lo, he's going to close out hard and just not close out too hard against the next guy, Rui, Reeves. That could be a strategy because you're right. Without Zubats, AD is going to be a problem if he's aggressive, which I would assume he's going to be, especially coming off a 14-point game. So,
yeah. And no LeBron.
But let's be honest. Yeah, and the LeBron. But let's be honest. Like, Clippers have lost 2 games to the Lakers. It's on the Clippers floor, Clipper home game. We have a great home record this year. And we have more star power with and without LeBron. Kawhi, LeBron did a very good. I mean, are we basically previewing the game right now? Have we transitioned into
that? No, let's hold off for a sec. All right, so let's do the award show here. We did this during the first quarter. So just to wrap up, in case people are new, because the pod is new, we decided for the end of year awards, instead of just talking about the end or just randomly bringing it up when a player has a hot streak, let's just save it for every quarter. So very simple, just divide 82 into 4, and every time we hit the marker, right around that marker when we do the pod, we're just going to evaluate there, and we can document kind of how it's going and check in on those races. Now, again, this isn't the NBA one. Maybe we'll do one like that at the end, but this is just for the team. Who's the best player? MVP, 6-man, defensive player, most improved, and I'll also highlight the peak performers, which will be no opinion, just facts, most points, most rebounds, most assists on the team, period, and we'll leave it at that. So we did that for the first quarter, and now we're doing it for the second, and we did it for both teams. I don't know Dime's answers, Dime doesn't know mine, so it's a surprise to both of us, and we're going to go into it. So we'll do Lakers, Clippers, maybe we'll switch off after that. But, okay, for MVP for the Lakers, I have Anthony Davis. I switched it up. I went with AD. Dime, who'd you go with?
Anthony Davis, for sure. I think he separated himself the last 2 or 3 weeks. His defense has been undeniable. His offensive aggression has been great. It's been such a great season so far for him that you could compare it to the 2020 AD. I know statistically some say it's better this season, but it was a 1 seed. I think that there's something to that as well. So I think but at worst, the second best season he's had as a Laker so far. I mean, I got to go with AD.
Yeah, I would have to say it's his best season, at least regular season. Obviously, when you win a title and you do that, and even last year, he was destroying the Grizzlies, and did great on the Warriors. So, obviously playoffs, it's a whole different animal. But so far, where they were in all those years, just his own personal performance, yeah, this is his best. And it's the first time I've actually conceded not naming him LeBron. And I'm like, I think AD's earned that with what he's done on both ends of the court, how consistent he's been, how healthy he's been. They're really, if you're not happy with this AD performance, there is no version of AD you're gonna like unless he becomes Will Chamberlain. Like he's doing it all right now. He's in an all NBA level performance for the Lakers. You can't really ask for more from what he's done. So yeah, I give him the MVP. All right, so let's go with the Clippers. Dime, why don't you kick us off? Who's the MVP of the Clippers so far?
It's got to be Kawhi Leonard. He's been excellent. Our defense, I think the stretch that really confirmed this for me was when he was out for 4 games and we went 2-2 and we just, against the Thunder and the Celtics, we couldn't guard. And he just adds this level of seriousness to the team. He's been excellent. I got to go with Kawhi.
All right. Well, we got our first change here. I went with Paul George. And the reason I went with Paul George is I feel like he's been a little bit better defensively, and I feel like he's hit more clutch shots. I feel like he's had more times where the game was swinging a little bit and he was the one executing. And I feel like this isn't the best year of Paul George, but I think he's maturing a lot in the role and embracing what it is. And I feel like I'm seeing a really good optimal version of Paul George on the Clippers right now. So I was kind of teetering both ways, but I'm like, you know what? I think it gives you more defensively. So I went with PG actually on this one.
I agree with I agree with your big shots thing potentially, but defense, no way. Because the reason why I say no way is because Paul George has bad defensive games sometimes. Kawhi doesn't have bad defensive games. He'll have mediocre at worst. He's just more locked in. He's just more locked in on defense. There's a reason why he was once Defensive Player of the Year. Like, he just has this. Paul George, you know how he is, man. Like, sometimes he just doesn't even look like the same player some nights. Kawhi Leonard, his worst games, he's still giving you good defense. So that's what makes him, one of the best small forwards to ever do it.
Okay, fair. All right, so that's where we're at for Clippers MVP. You talk defense. Let's go into Defensive Player of the Year. I think for the Lakers, it's going to be pretty easy. Yeah. AD, right? I mean, yeah. Who else could it be? He might be the Defensive Player of the entire NBA. So I think we'll keep it short there. AD's been dominant. He's always had that part locked down. Even when you hated how AD played, you could not deny that he was just a threat to just defend the rim. He can go out there, he can switch, he can play against faster guards. He's just doing it all, and he's everything defensively. He's always been that. This season is no different. And if anything, again, this might be his best season in that regard. So he's just been sensational. So I think we can, as much as I love to talk about AD's defense, I don't think we have to wax poetically 5 minutes every single time. He's Defensive Player of the Year, and that's pretty clear. All right, so let's go ahead and go into the Clippers. I think our answers are going to be the same here, but let me hear your first one. Who's been Defensive Player of the Year for the Clippers?
I'm going with Zoo.
Wow. Okay.
I think Kawhi second. I'd say Terrence Mann or Westbrook third and fourth. Take your pick. I think Terrence just played more and he gets bigger assignments than Russ, but Russ, you could argue in his minutes has been as good. But I'd say Zoo, most consistently the biggest impact defensively, protecting the rim. He really bails out some guys. Like, even when Russ is falling asleep at times, or the rare possessions that he will get beat off the bounce. With Norman Harden, they're going to have their fair share of getting beat off the bounce here and there. So Zoo really helps those guys. And he's just been a great rim protector throughout his Clipper tenure, but he consistently seems to get better at that. And the more engaged he is offensively, the harder he seems to go, and the more, the better attention to detail he seems to have on the defensive end. So I'm going with Zoo.
I'm surprised with Zoo. So I went with Kawhi for the reasons you mentioned for him being MVP. I think he still does it at such a high level, and he's got the responsibility he has. He usually has to play against some of the better ball handlers in the league and has to step up against them. And I think, again, he brings it on that level. So I went with Kawhi over Zoo. If I didn't go Kawhi, I was thinking of Russ, not because he's the best defender, but coming off the bench and doing what he does defensively, bringing that energy, riding it when things are wrong, like that 16-0 deficit, and coming in and being the spark plug on both sides of the ball. I thought Russ was another candidate, almost a dark horse, like where he's not playing the best defensively, but man, does he really help when he's going there. So yeah, I'm surprised we're kind of a little bit different here. You didn't go with Kawhi.
You're I don't you know what every listener right now is thinking is how the hell are you gonna have Kawhi as your Clipper defender of the year? And then you were saying Paul George was better defensively than him.
No, not better defensively.
Better defensively
Maybe
so far this season, you said.
well, here's why I gave PG the MVP. I feel like his defense is better in terms of like compared to where he normally is. He's improved. So because of
Yeah.
that, with the offense, I'm giving him that. You know what I mean? If you're just saying who's better defender, I'm giving it to Kawhi. But the MVP is all of it together, and it's like I'm giving you kind of extra points for doing a job you normally don't do that good compared to Kawhi. I'm like, oh yeah, I always get that. So I feel like okay, cool. So that's what it is. It's kind of like when the kid who does his homework gets a little more credit than the kid who always does his homework. It's kind of one of those scenarios. But I'm not denying it. That's why I give him the defensive player. I'm like, that's Kawhi. But when you add it all up, I think Paul George has played a little bit above what he's normally done in a Clipper uniform. Again, not including playoffs and all that. But so that's why I have him as MVP. But I have Kawhi as the defensive player of the year. I think just on that side of the ball, period. I mean, yeah, I think he's the best. And Russ is kind of like a dark horse favorite for the role and how well he does in it. All right, so
Fair enough.
yeah. Let's go to six man here. I struggle with the Lakers because they changed their starting five so much. I'm like, who's even the bench player? Like, you give it to Reeves, he's starting now. D'Lo's starting again. So I kind of went off the menu here. I went with Max Christie because I know he's a bench player. He always gets minutes, and I'm like, I feel like I'll be able to answer this question better next time because the trade deadline will be done. They'll probably solidify a starting five, and we can be for sure. Right now, I'm like the players who I thought of. They've half the time they've started, so I went with Max Christie. I think he's definitely taking a step forward. I think he's been in a tough situation with the Lakers, big name team, not that many minutes around. They're trying to win, and I think he's been doing well in that role. So I'm really curious to see how you approach six man for the Lakers given the instability with that starting five.
I went with Reeves just because he's not started the majority of his games. He's come off the bench for the majority, 19 starts out of 44. So I'm going with Reeves, but if I had to go with someone else, I'd probably say Rui Hachimura, just because he's still averaging double-figure points and he's shooting 47%, so not that bad. I just think he's not as good of a three-point shooter as what we saw in the playoffs. I think the playoffs are an outlier in terms of threes for him. I never thought he was that good of a three-point shooter. I think he's been more of a mid-range post-up guy, like a 2000 or an 80s player. But he still can hit threes, and I'd still encourage him to take the open ones. I just think he shouldn't force threes. I don't think he necessarily does, but I think he takes some really tough shots. But I still like Rui's role. I think he's another guy I think that playing him more doesn't hurt, really, to be honest. That's my opinion. I know some people are divided on that.
No, I'm with you. I think Rui, more minutes for Rui. He should be a six-man role or starting. I think he should probably also explore starting. Again, it's a fluctuating thing. Six-man, you can the way you defined it and the way you approached it was totally fine. I went with a different approach. Hopefully, for the next time we do this, it's really clear who the Lakers starters are and who the bench players are, and we won't have a debate about, oh, well, technically, because either Reeves will stay there and he'll get like another 20 and you'll be like, doesn't make sense, or he will be a six-man and Rui will be a six-man and it'll be a little more consistent and we'll kind of, see the picture and see who's been available. All right, for the Clippers, to me, this was an easy answer. I got Russ. I mean, did you have something different?
Yeah, I went with Norman Powell.
What?
I did because
you went against the Brody you just talked about. All the things he does, and he's the spark off the bench, and he's been so great. Like, what happened?
He is all that, but Norman Powell just gets a good amount of more minutes than him. I think it's sad that Russ has had a lot. I'm gonna check the minutes right now for the season. Russ is at 23.3, Norm's at 25.5. So he's only averaging 2 more minutes right now, but it's just that of late, some of that's a little skewed from when the big four start, like the first 10 games that Russ started for us. And like there's been some games recently where his stands will be like, he's the 9th man. Like, this sucks. At worst, though, he's the 7th man, like at worst, minutes wise. But there have been some games recently where Coffee and Tice have been playing well, and then Harden's playing so well, and they don't want the big four playing together with Zoo on the court because spacing. So, as we said with the Nets game, the lineup of the big four plus Norm actually worked, but can you get away with Harden and Norm and then Kawhi at the 5, against good teams? Like, So that's going to be a little tricky. But I love Westbrook. I think in the games that he plays well, which is very frequent with the Clippers, but in the games that he plays really well, Norm can't touch his overall impact. But I think more consistently, you can get what you want. Like Russ, he has bad games. Like he has some games where he's just like,
Mhm.
makes
You don't have to
mistakes.
tell me he has bad games.
Right. Norm Powell is very consistent.
Yeah.
Very consistent.
Okay.
Like his shooting splits are fantastic. His lineup data when he plays with Harden, Zubats, and Kawhi and Paul is like amazing. Like he's been part of our best 5-man lineup of the season. So I'm gonna go with Norm, but I don't think you're wrong for picking Russ because I think when Russ
Right.
plays well, like he did the other night, Norm just can't touch that kind of impact. I think Russ is still better at basketball than him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just
Well,
think
yeah. Six
Norm,
man is a specific role. Yeah.
right? And Russ is the first person off the bench, but Norm is the one getting the more minutes, and he's closing games more.
Yeah.
So I go with Norm, but Russ can't. The fact that we have two guys that can be competing for that, it's a luxury.
It's a good set. Yeah, the Lakers don't, right? I don't even know who the 6 man is because of the instability of the starting lineup. So yeah,
Right.
different story here, right? I wasn't like, oh, is Zoo the no. I know who's on the bench for the Clippers because I know who starts, and it's really clear, even if things might slightly shift here and there. No, yeah, great point there. Okay, for most improved, this one I struggled with because the Lakers have kind of been, not having a great year, so there haven't been too many like breakout stars or players that are really shining. So I went with Reeves just because he's marginally improved. So most improved in that regard. His numbers are up. He's having a career year. He's only playing like one more minute. He's getting a couple more points, a couple more assists, a couple more rebounds. So I went with Reeves. I'm really curious who you picked as most improved on the Lakers.
I went with Cam Reddish because this is the most
Oh,
relevant
wow.
role. This is the most relevant role he's had in his career. And he's actually been like a starter for this team, regardless of if they're a 500 team and underachieving. He's been a starter for the Lakers with LeBron and AD. And, if he is on this team after the deadline, which I think he will be,
Me too.
I think I think the Lakers will still make the play-in at least, probably the playoffs, but I think they'll make the play-in still. And the fact that he'll have this big of a role on a postseason team, especially one with LeBron and Anthony Davis on it, I mean, it's much bigger than anything he's done in his career so far. So I got to go with Cam Reddish.
That's a good one. Yeah, I mean, I thought of Cam Reddish because I saw the options. I was like, who's really improved? I'm like, So yeah, no, but that's fair. He's gotten a bigger role and he's taking advantage of it. And as of the time of this recording, he's getting those kind of minutes. I'm curious to see when we get to that next part of the season. Do they finally take him off? Does he start getting, benched a little bit more? Right now, he's just recovering from an injury, so he only played 21 minutes, but he still played 21 minutes. So, yeah, I'll be curious to see how that goes as new players maybe come in and we start to kind of solidify things here. It might look different there. For most improved for the Clippers, I struggled with this one too. I wasn't really sure. Honestly, I went with Zoo because I feel like he's stepped up, even though he's been good other years. I feel like you said, his defense has been so much better. His points are also up, so he's getting more production as well. So
That's
I
the
went
hard
with Zoo.
that point stuff is the Harden effect because the pick and roll, he's the god at that. Like he because you have to respect his jump shots. They all go over the screen, and he's perfect at those little dump offs and his timing. He's picking when it comes to pick and roll. Harden is up there with the greats, with the Stocktons and the Chris Pauls. Like I've never denied that.
No, yeah, I agree. And Zoo's ate off that. And, again, you get more opportunities, but are you going to capitalize on them? And Zoo has. And that's the first thing you said when Harden got traded. You're like, Zoo's going to eat off this. And he
Yeah.
has. So that's why I went with him for most improved, even though, that skews it. But also, he still has a big role. And he struggled early in the season. He's kind of also improved within the season, even from like the first couple, like maybe 20 games to now. He's kind of gotten back to what you want and even giving you more than maybe you expected. So who did you go with for most improved on the Clippers?
I went with Daniel Tice because he
Okay.
was literally a non-factor for Indiana last year. He played 7 games total for the Pacers last year and 21 for the Celtics that made the finals. He's played 30 games this year. He's averaging 7 points, 4 rebounds, and a block off the bench on 53% shooting and 45 from 3. Now, granted, he doesn't shoot a high volume of threes, but 45 and then 52 from the field. And he just plays really hard, man. And I mean, I watched Tyson Boston when I was at UMass, and he was definitely better than this. Like he was younger and just he was a starting center in the NBA on a good team. So he's not that anymore. He's an undersized 5. But in the backup role, I mean, the way he's come in without Mason after not being very relevant last year at all, even for his own team. Now he comes into a championship contending team and he's playing this big of a role. I mean, he's been amazing. He's had like a revival. So I got to go with Tice. But Zubats isn't a bad pick either.
Yeah. No, I like that. Yeah, you definitely contextualize, the struggles from the years prior and how he's improved this year. So yeah, no, that's fair. Okay, we're gonna go into peak performers real quick. Some of these numbers are really interesting. Again, for those who don't know, peak performers, literally just the stats. Who's got the most points? Who's got the most rebounds? Averages, not like the grand total, because that might be slightly different. But for the Lakers, peak performer when it comes to points is Anthony Davis with 24.9. How close is LeBron? 1 decimal point off. He's at 24.8. So they're neck and neck on that battle. But right now, AD's got it. When it comes to rebounds, there's no neck and neck battle. It's Anthony Davis by a wide margin. He's got 12.2. Behind him is LeBron, but he's got 7.2. So that gap's pretty clear. But guess what? When it comes to assists, is it D'Lo? No. LeBron James, 7.4. So again, LeBron's right there with AD in just about every category, and he's got the assists, and AD's taking care of points and rebounds. All right, moving on to the Clippers. Actually, funny enough, they have the same scenario. Kawhi is your peak performer with 23.7 points, but PG 23.6. So they're also just neck and neck, as close as possible. It's like you got to do a balance count for that. So they're neck and neck there too. When it comes to rebounding, Zoo's taking care of that. He's got the margin 9.7. Closest is also Kawhi.
I really want Zubats to average 10 rebounds. Like
he's right 10, there, 9.7.
If you round up, it's 10, but like I need that double average for like I've been asking for it for years. A lot of times it's just Ty Lue doesn't play him 30 minutes, but this seems to be the first year where Ty's leaning into playing Zubats to close games, which is important sometimes.
100%. Yeah, he's right there, 9.7. So he's getting close. And then for assists, I don't think you'll be surprised talking about the pick and roll high volume shooter, James Harden, 8.5. And really, he's behind him. It's a huge gap. It's Russ with 4, so 4.8, I believe. So there's a big gap there. James Harden is clearly the one who's getting the dimes out there. And with all the offensive weapons this super team has, there's a lot of opportunities for buckets.
Why in the quotes though? This looks like a super team. Like, what else is there to say? You're telling me James Harden hasn't played All-Star level basketball? So you're making me defend James Harden now. He might not, just because the West has so many good guards, but like if you're telling me he's playing
All-Star level, yes. Okay, 100%. I'll give you All-Star level.
Yeah, he's playing great, dude. I can't even say anything negative about the way he's playing like that.
I should gaslight you just to hear you wax poetically about the offensive machine that is James Harden.
Oh my God! Listen,
Kobe flashbacks inside crypto.
Please, Kobe would be ashamed of what you just said. I think that makes us go on to the next topic. We're gonna end that one, right?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So next topic, we're gonna actually go into the NBA standings real quick before we do upcoming games. This is a new segment now that we're past the halfway point. Me and Dime talking the last, but hey, when are we gonna start looking at standings? He's like, I start doing it now. So I'm like, okay, we're at the halfway point. Let's go ahead and do it. So obviously, this is gonna be probably changing whenever you're listening to this, because they change every time there's a win or loss. So there's going to be a lot of fluctuation, but we're going to give you the standings on Monday, January 22nd. Here's where things stand. I'm going to go ahead and read off the East, and then we'll go into the West. Number 1, real quick, we got the Celtics 34-10. 2, the Bucks are 30-13. 3, Philly is 29-13. 4, you got the Cavs at 26-15. 5, the Knicks, 26-17. 6, the Heat, 24-19. And in the play-in, you have the Pacers at 7, Magic at 8, the Bulls at 9, and the Hawks at 10. So, Dime, you're hearing that. Hopefully, you're looking at it as well. What stands out to you right now in the East, standing-wise?
My preseason prediction order from 1 to 6 is spot on. That's what it stands out to me. But it's not that, I don't think it's that hard to predict. I will say, though, I had the Sixers 6th initially, but then when they traded, I said, okay, they're going to be the 3rd seed with that trade. You know what I mean? I think it's fair to be able to adjust the Sixers. I didn't do anything about the Clippers or adjust there. I just left it where it was at for that one. But, yeah, the exact order. What stands out to me is the Atlanta Hawks being lower than Orlando and Indiana. I just expected a little bit more from them. And I think that they've been exposed to not be a very good team. Remember, this team took the Celtics to 6 games. Like, they weren't that bad. They weren't just pushovers. But, yeah, I'd say that's what stands out. Other than that, Orlando and Indiana, I had them in the play-in before the season started. So the fact that they're there is not a big deal to me. I mean, Orlando's kind of come back down to earth. They're still a very solid team. They're getting better. But they're not winning the playoff series this year.
Yeah, I'm also off the Orlando Magic train. I was kind of on it saying, you know what, I think they're going to stay in the four. And then you were like, I don't know. Those numbers don't look too good. And then I
Oh
was like,
yeah, I forgot about that conversation.
yeah, I remembered. And I was like, oh, then I've been watching them. I'm like, they keep losing games. I'm like, I think you're right. They might even fall out of it. Well, it'll depend. We still got a lot of basketball left. So can the Raptors or Nets want to do it? But it doesn't seem like anyone else wants to win games. So maybe they stick around.
You know what is the big standout actually is the Bulls. Your Bulls, Edwin. No, I'm just kidding.
My Bulls.
Well, then you grew up there, but
I
Chicago
grew up there.
being 21-23 at this point of the season is shocking to me because they started out terribly, and it's been without Zach LaVine that they're playing well. And Kobe White's had this, breakout season. Like, I think that's been one of the most surprising things of the East.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Again, the players have pride. They're playing, and yeah, Kobe White's always a player I've liked. I liked him since he was, a Tar Heel, and I always thought he could start to do some of this stuff, and kind of bust out of that role that he had where he was, very limited minutes. He was getting some leash in the beginning, but he didn't really pan out. And I always kind of believe him. Like, hey, I was always curious to see if he would get traded or moved and get an opportunity somewhere else. But it seems like the Bulls are getting a little bit more run, and he's kind of balled out there. So yeah, I'm happy for Kobe White, and we'll see if they hold on to that. But the Bulls have been kind of in that play-in area the last couple seasons and have made it. So we'll see what happens there with them. All right, now let's go to what we really want to talk about, which is the Western Conference. I'm just going to go through the order here instead of the win-loss because I think it'll be better just to hear them. So at the top, number 1, we have the T-Wolves. 2 is Oklahoma City. 3, Denver Nuggets. 4, your LA Clippers. Then we have 5, we have the Suns. 6, we got the Pelicans. 7, play-in spot, we have the Kings, Mavericks, Lakers, and Jazz. So, Dime, what stands out to you right now?
Minnesota? You kidding me? The fact that they're still number 1 is insane. They lost, though, on Monday night, which I love. I hope they drop out of that number 1 spot. OKC, even better than I expected. Because Chet, I thought he would be good, Chet, but he's really good. He's really, really good. So, and then J-Dub, I really am a big fan. So, OKC's been impressive. But what stands out to me, of course, besides that, Laker girls. No. Not the Laker girls, but you know what I'm saying. The Lakers. You got to look down. You got to scroll on your phone to find them.
I don't have to scroll. It's in the image.
All right. Well, in the playing image. You know
who's not in the image?
Houston?
They're not in the image. You're right. But it's over. Is the Golden Dynasty not here? Topped from number 1 to not mentioned at all. No one's talking about Steph. No one's talking about Dre. I haven't heard gravity. Did Einstein undiscover it? I haven't heard the word gravity in so long. Half the spaces are just there for a funeral. It's been something else, like what's happened? I mean, obviously it's death of a dynasty, right? This is what happens when, which I do like the fact that the Warriors have said, you know what, until the wheels fall off. But guess what? If you ride until the wheels fall off, the wheels fall off. Eventually the trans goes out and you're like, oh, I can't really replace it. It's 3,000. The car's only worth 1,500. I think it's time to, to just, send it to the trash heap, which I've had to do with my Mitsubishi Galant from 2002 when that happened. That might be the scenario that the Warriors are in. I know fans they're unlike the Lakers. I don't think there's a trade there might be a trade that gets them playing, and they always have a puncher's chance because they do have that talent and that pedigree. But I mean, they're not even 11; they're 12. I mean, they're only above the Grizzlies, Suns, Spurs, and the Blazers. I mean, it's just rough. 18 and 22. We talk about the Lakers meandering in mediocrity. I mean, that's something the Warriors would relish at this point. So, is it done? Okay, let's just ask this question: do the Warriors make the play-in? Yes or no? Sorry.
Oh, man. I'm going to stick to my guns and say yes, because that's what I said before the season started. And they need to, quite frankly. They need to, because Steph Curry, I don't care about all the dysfunction. You better make the play-in, dude. Come on. Because if it was other greats, we'd hold the same energy. At least I would. And secondly, The Utah Trash cannot make any postseason event. I will not have that. They cannot. Please don't let that happen.
I think you're in luck. I'm gonna go with that as well. I'm gonna ride with the wheels fall off as well. I'm saying, you know what? They got too much talent. They'll figure out enough to make the play in. Utah, let's be honest, ownership doesn't want them to be any good. So maybe they might do another trade. Say, you know what? Let's just take it out of your options by getting rid of a couple good players, get some more draft capital, and let's slip out of this 10 spot. So that way we don't have to be in the playoffs and we can, kind of improve our lottery odds a little bit. You don't see too much of that now because of the play-in and competition just been so good overall in the league. But for a team like the Jazz, no one's going to care if they're losing a couple games and giving away a few assets. It's not going to be a big deal. So because of that, and the Golden State Warriors definitely want to make it, right? I don't think they're not tanking at all. They want to win. They want to get out of this mediocrity they've been in, sub 500. So I think they're going to make it. But man, we'll keep checking every week. But they have to start stringing some games. I don't know when the last time they won 3 in a row has been. And if they did that, they'd still be one game under 500 right now. So they're in trouble. They got to get it together. And there's not as much time. There's time, but it starts playing against you, especially once we hit the All-Star break. So we'll keep checking in here. For me, besides that, obviously Lakers at 9, they're trying to push up. I think the best case scenario for the Lakers at this point that's realistic is the 6 seed. They're only, I think, like 4 games out of there, and there's still like 40-something games. So you can make that push if you start rolling together wins, but they need to start doing that. That's still going to be a fluctuating thing. But I'm not worried about them making the play-in. They'll make the play-in. I prefer to be in that 6 seed. Although right now that would be Denver, and I don't like thinking of Denver first round. But it's going to be the West is going to be so fun now that like we've established kind of a hierarchy. These games would be great. Getting Denver versus the Pelicans in the first round. You'd have Clippers Suns first round. That could be fun. We've seen that action before, but now with the new Suns team there, I know Dime's gonna enjoy that series if that happens again.
I need it, but I don't know about first round. That concerns me. What I want is a top 2 seed.
Yeah,
that would ensure. The only thing that scares me is Lakers first round. I don't want that. That would be too much pressure. These guys would fold. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't say that. But I just think the chances of a complete catastrophe, and then the ticket prices, like that's another thing I don't want to talk about. Like they're going to be outrageous. Like it's a spectacle for everybody else, but like for me, it's a disaster because there's too many Lakers fans. Yeah. It's not a real home court advantage. The way we've played at home this season, we need a home court against the team that's not the Lakers or the Warriors, the first round. Like I don't want a bunch of fans in the opposing team. And that's what it would be like with Lakers and Warriors.
You think Warriors fans would outsell Clippers fans in the stadium as well?
No, but they'd bring at least 40%, and that's too much for a playoff game, I'd say. Maybe, and I will say this, though. Sacramento has a little bit of a chance of getting dicey since they're it's an in-state situation. But I don't know. Are there that many Kings fans that would really make that big a difference at a playoff game? Like, I don't really know. And I wouldn't mind playing the Kings. I think we got way too much for them. But yeah, top 2 seed, let the chips fall where they may. And I don't think that the Lakers will. I just don't believe this Lakers Clipper thing is going to happen in the Staples Center era, but you never know. This is the last year. If it's ever going to happen in the Staples Center, it has to be now or never.
And if you get the 2 seed and the Lakers get the 7, there you go. It could happen. We're not too far away from it.
But that also adds to my stress level because then if we lose as a 2 seed, it's like 100 times worse as opposed to 4 or 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
I need another team. If we play the Lakers in the second round, well, that's very stressful. It is what it is because when you're in the second round, you can't get picky and choosy. You're just going to have to play a great team. That's how it goes. That's what I've learned. First round, though, it'd be nice for once in my life to get a non-stressful first-round series. Like, besides the Denver Nuggets series that we beat them in 2006, every other Clipper first-round series has gone at least 6. Every single one. We've never won a series in 5 games or less besides that 2006. So give me a 5 games or less for relaxation.
Clippers in 5 tweet would be amazing.
Please.
All right, we'll see. We'll keep track. We'll see. Everything's still very tight, especially in the West. I mean, a couple games separate everybody, so it's gonna. There's definitely plenty of room to go from 4 to 2 for the Lakers to go from 9 to 6. So it's gonna keep fluctuating. That's why we're gonna check in every week. and kind of see how things are changing. All right, so upcoming games here. Let's make it quick. We got Lakers Bulls on Thursday. The Lakers are going to be They're gonna be here. They're gonna be here. They'll be here playing Chicago. 7:30 start time. I have the Lakers winning this game, even though the Bulls have been punching above their weight based on everything we have. I think the Lakers will take care of this regardless. What do you think here? Who do you got? Lakers, Bulls.
I got the Bulls, and I think because it's just going to be one of those disappointing losses the Lakers have, where they don't play up to par.
Okay, interesting. We'll see. I think if the Lakers do lose against the Clippers, I feel like, okay, then they're going to bring it against the Bulls. They'll have LeBron back. That'll be the excuse, and they'll play correct. But it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Either way, the Bulls, I don't think they're not going to lie down or anything. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out. And that energy, like you said, take care of your games that you should win. If you're going to lose to the Clippers because they're good, then you got to beat the teams that are bad. So something's going to have to give there. All right, on Friday, we got Clippers, Raptors. 4:30 start. Obviously, they're going to be in a different time zone and all that. So that's why the game's so early. I'm going to have the Clippers here. I think they're going to take care of business regardless. The Raptors are they've made some improvements, but they're still kind of in flux a little bit. I just feel like I'm more comfortable betting on the Clippers than the Raptors. How are you feeling here, Dime?
Yeah, Clippers. Kawhi, big game in front of his the franchise that he so generously helped win a championship.
So generously. The cockiness of the Raptors and the genius of Masai because Kawhi decided to help him out is just I'm so over it. But anyway, Masai is good at his job. He is. I'm not saying he isn't, but come on. That ring, you know why you got it. Because Kawhi decided to give it to you. So anyway, Clippers Celtics next. One of the rare times where I'll definitely have the pom-poms out. You know, what do you guys say? Clip, bang, don't bang. What's the phrase you guys got over there?
Clip, gang, or don't bang.
Yeah, there you go. That's well, I'm gonna be there. Clip City, is that more your speed?
Lob City.
All right, well, whatever you guys, let me know the cheers. I might pull up in the 200 section for this one. Although it's in Boston, so I won't be able to
all the rest by yourself while the rest of us are watching on TV.
Exactly. Yeah, I might pull up to crypto and just hang out with the statues there. I won't deface them though, but that's another story for another day. But we have they play in Boston, so obviously I'm not rooting for Boston. So you know what? I'm going to go with Clippers. I'm going to say Clippers are going to take care of business. They're going to get a tough game against a top team in the East. They're going to win on the road. Do you feel like they're going to get this one, or is this one of the ones they might lose because of the circumstance? And also, the Boston's really good.
I think they'll lose by a little bit, but it'll be a great game. Boston's really good at home, and they're just a very good team. And
they've only lost once at home, correct?
Right, to Denver, quality opponent. So, 100%. Yeah, I think there's a good chance we win, but I'm going to go with an L here because I'm not going to pick against the Clippers much in these predictions that we do. So, I'm going to go with an L here.
Okay, fair. All right, Lakers, Warriors. I'm going to have to go Lakers. I just think, again, the Warriors are still struggling. They're still trying to find how to fix this, and I think the Lakers will take care of it, even though it will be in Golden State, which will be a tough crowd. Not as tough as it used to be at Oracle and all that, but it's still a tough crowd. They have the energy, especially when the Lakers come to town. So I'm going to go with the Lakers here, though. How about you?
Lakers. You have a good matchup with Golden State.
Yeah. Okay, so let's finish it up here. Monday, doubleheader. We got Lakers and Clippers playing, starting with Clippers at Cavs. 4:00 start. It's an early game. You know what? I'm going to Zach here. I like the Clippers better, but I'm going to say the Cavs take care of home court. How about you?
I'm going to go with the Clippers, but that's a good game, and it's a potential for a loss.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and then we have Lakers Rockets an hour later, so 5:00, another early one. Again, the Rockets, they had a little hot moment, and they were like, oh, kind of surprising. They've kind of fallen off. They have played the Lakers well, and they beat the Lakers in one of the games, but I think the Lakers take care of business here. They beat the Rockets. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with the Lakers, and I think it'll be a very hard-fought win, but it'll be a win that Laker fans will be very excited about because the Rockets are no slouch this year.
Yeah, that's right. There are no slouch. They're definitely they're starting to build something, even if the wins and losses aren't where they want them to be. So, all right, that concludes tonight's episode. Had a nice big one here, nice and hefty with the awards and the previews and trade talks. I think we covered everything going on with both teams, so that's fantastic. So that's the end of episode 14 of Basketball on Figueroa. I'm your host, Edwin Garcia. That is Dar-E-N Vaziri, a.k.a. Dime Dropper, and we are out.